In kendo, practitioners face each other with swords made from bamboo, known in Japanese as shinai. Around 2.6 million people worldwide now practice this unique sport, drawn in great part by its emphasis on etiquette and spiritual development. Kendo is one of Japan's most iconic martial arts, and a world championship is held once every 3 years. The term kendo dates back to 1912. Before then, the practice of sword skills was known as Kenjutsu. Kenjutsu was developed and refined by Japan's samurai warriors between the 10th and 19th centuries. The samurai are famous as the fearless and principled warriors who played a central role in shaping Japanese history. Kenjutsu developed as part of the combat techniques used by samurai on the battlefield, where such skills would decide life or death. The legends of the samurai have captured people's imagination across the globe, and many visitors to Japan jump at the chance to get a taste of the samurai world. This store has a huge selection of different samurai armor. In the back of the store, tourists from overseas strike poses with samurai swords. The business is actually a photo studio. When the studio began offering this samurai cosplay service 2 years ago, it immediately became a hit with foreign visitors. This customer has ordered a package of still photos and videos. The cameraman directs the action and shoots him in various classic poses. He's particularly keen to make sure his customer wields the sword just right.
Ready, action! Oh, good, good, good.
Let's take a look at the end results. The studio combines the shots with backgrounds and other images to produce a final product of movie-style quality.
It was a lot of fun, and watching the video actually made you excited, so that was really cool.
Nearly 150 years after passing into history, samurai continue to cast an enchanting spell for many. In today's show, we take a look at the samurai's famed sword skills and the roots of Japanese martial arts philosophy.
This store in Ginza, Tokyo sells traditional Japanese swords of the type once carried by the samurai. If you take a close look at these swords, the blades are extremely beautiful.
Alex Bennett, originally from New Zealand, has a deep knowledge of samurai culture and Japanese martial arts. He began learning kendo at the age of 17 when he came to Japan as an exchange student. He has now been learning Japanese sword techniques for over 30 years. Alex belongs to a school of Kenjutsu that practices iaido, which requires the holder of the sword to draw and wield their weapon against an invisible enemy. These prescribed movements are called kata, and each school of Kenjutsu maintains their own unique sets of movements. In modern times, the aim of Kenjutsu has become to demonstrate beauty in performing the kata and to polish various techniques for wielding the sword with extreme precision.
Watching you wield a real sword, I can really feel a sense of tension in the air. So what was it like when you held a real sword for the first time in your whole life?
It was pretty scary, actually. when I held it, a real sword for the first time, I guess I could, if I was to sum it up in one word, it would be respect. I felt a real feeling of respect when I held it, something that you shouldn't play with.
Samurai were most active in their military role during Japan's Warring States period that began in the mid-1400s. Violence broke out across the country as different groups struggled to expand their territory, resulting in more than a century of bloodshed and chaos. Warriors who could fell a large number of opponents won respect, and through their deeds had the chance to climb into positions of power. Samurai worked to improve their sword skills and develop ever more efficient ways of prevailing over their enemies in battle. Numerous different schools of sword fighting were founded. At one point, there were said to be more than 700 separate Kenjutsu styles. Some of these schools continue to this day. Members of this school continue to fight wearing traditional armor and helmets.
We don't make too much fuss about it, but the armor weighs around 30 kilos. Another characteristic of our school is that since you can't attack in the usual places, you need to aim specifically for the gaps in your opponent's armor.
Members of this school practice accurately cutting a target, wielding their sword with precision and improving the slicing power of their blows. Some schools stress the importance of performing kata in pairs. The wide variety of distinct schools reflects diversity in the timing and location of their founding, as well as differences in the philosophy of their founders. Today, most schools do not rank winners and losers, but rather harness Kenjutsu training as a means of personal and spiritual development. During the Warring States period, however, swords had another, more grisly use, beyond simply fighting one's opponent.
There are some people who say that, in fact, during the Warring States period, the swords were used mainly after battle for collecting heads. When a warrior fights in battle, he expects some kind of reward for his service. Well, there was not always enough land or something for a lord to give his retainers. So he might give a loyal servant a special sword as kind of payment, if you like.
At this Kenjutsu school, visitors can experience wielding a real samurai sword. Interest in the samurai is once again booming across Japan. The Edo Mugai-ryu school dates back nearly 400 years. 7 years ago, the school began accepting visits from foreign tourists. Visitors start out by holding a blunt sword, which they practice swinging to get a feel for the blade and its arc.
We obviously can't cut people, so we cut a pillar of tightly rolled tatami straw. We cut along this line, representing from the base of the neck down to the vital organs.
It's finally time to try with a real blade.
Slow. Wait to change. Stop. Very good. 2. Wait to change. Stop. Go. Very good. Go. Very good.
The blow lands cleanly.
Go. Very good.
Both tourists manage to slice the straw pole.
People are delighted when they successfully cut something with the sword. But what we really hope is that they can also get a sense of the samurai spirit. We explain to visitors from overseas about the value of stilling their wandering thoughts to make their mind one as they take on this challenge.
In Japan, many young women are now taking an interest in traditional swords.
Rather than just seeing them, I feel like I'm going to meet them. I've already been here more than 10 times.
Their beauty really draws you in.
The popularity of these swords stems in part from an online game launched in 2016. Within the game, 70 different swords are transformed into characters who then do battle against each other. The characters proved very popular with women across Japan. This popularity eventually led to a growing interest in the original swords too. For example, this famous sword is known as the Shokudai Kiri Mitsutada. As the sword belonged to a samurai who wore an eye patch, its avatar character also wears a patch. When the actual sword was recently put on display, it attracted over 10,000 visitors in just 2 months. Recent events held across Japan to teach people more about Japanese swords have been packed with enthusiastic women. This popularity has in turn led to increasing numbers of women taking up Kenjutsu. One school with a large number of new female students is the Tenshinryu Hyoho School. While many schools prefer to keep their techniques secret, Tenshinryu uses social media to publicize its training sessions and advertise various events. The school's activities, combined with the booming interest in samurai sword culture, have led to a striking increase in new female students.
The number of women has increased dramatically, which is something quite remarkable in the world of classical martial arts.
My friend said she wanted to go to a Tenshinryu event and she brought me along. I'd never had a particular interest before, but for some reason I ended up joining and she didn't.
Many more women come to take part or to watch the demonstrations, and I think they're very proactive.
Now, women account for around half of the school's students. Kuami Masakumo, the school's grandmaster, says that creating an environment that encourages people to take part is extremely important.
The reason you first take an interest really doesn't matter. In the same way that many people casually stop by a fitness club after work, we first want to become one of the options people think of. It's only if we get a large group of people together that we can become a real force to help pass on traditional Japanese culture and help the next generation to understand and appreciate its value.
Japanese swords are both lethal weapons and objects of exceptional beauty. The swords are made using iron sand, a source of iron ore. Iron sand and pine charcoal are smelted together in a clay furnace, a labor